Hello everyone and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, as you can see by your screen, we're going to be doing a tier maker list. And if you can see the tiers, we've got S, Elite, Great, Good, Decent, and Replaceable. And we're going to be ranking basically all the pros and substitutes, most of them. Guys like JCap and Karma have been taken out because while I kind of believe they might come back, they're obviously, as of right now, retired still. So we're not going to keep them in the list because, I mean, it'd be kind of unfair to put them in like the good or great category over some guys that are actually playing if they're not going to come back at all. So we've got pretty much every player. I don't think I forgot anybody. I made this one on my own, so I could have, but I kind of just went through the CDL website and took all their pictures, including any subs that I think are still going to try to play. So yeah, we've got all the teams. We've got at least all the starters and most of the subs. Obviously, like I said, not including JCap and Karma, and we're going to rank them purely heading into Cold War, and it's purely going to be based on how I think they're going to play. Or like their stock going into Cold War. It has nothing to do with like their brand at all. This is purely them as a player, because if it had to do with their brand, it'd kind of be a little dumb. Scump would be an S tier, even though he might be only like an elite or great player, he'd instantly be an S tier if we were also dealing with like their brand and stuff, because he's obviously the most marketable player in the league by far, so he'd be in the S tier. So we're not going to do anything like that. It's going to be purely kind of how they played in Modern Warfare, but probably more of how they played in BO4, since BO4 is probably more similar to this game, and then I think kind of like how people are looking at them right now based on like their BO4 play, like I said, and then how people are looking forward to them maybe based on their history in all Black Ops games. So maybe like somebody like Apathy gets a boost because he was insane in Black Ops 3 and then he was really good at Black Ops 4 champs, or like Dylan maybe gets a little boost even though he struggled at Modern Warfare. He was like maybe the best submachine gun player in the world in Black Ops 4, so maybe that gives him a boost. So yeah, we are going to be looking at all of that. And then if you can see the tiers, it's S, Elite, Great, Good, Decent, and Replaceable. And I used to have it at 15 for each of the middle ones, but then I realized, you know what? We need more spots in Good and Decent, because Elite and Great should be more of a rare category to be in, because obviously it's much better to be Elite or Great, and there's less Elite players than there are decent players. So yeah. And be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on the channel if you enjoyed. We've been growing pretty fast recently. We're trying to hit that 200 sub goal, hopefully, by the start of Black Ops Cold War Competitive. There's a big announcement yesterday. It's going to PC with controller, which is insane. It was overnight at like 2 a.m., but they announced that. That is crazy to think about, but we'll talk about that in another episode, possibly if we do a podcast on the rosters, since free agency has officially started. They can officially sign. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into this. So the video isn't 5 hours long. Probably just going to go in order of the players down here. I kind of just randomized them a little bit, so the teams might be clumped up a little bit since I put them in by team. But yeah, and if I put somebody in a category or something, it's not final. I might go through, like if I end up putting 20 people in Good, I'm going to have to shift them around and stuff. So if I put somebody in a category, it's not instantly final. Just remember that. So the first player is Awakening, and he's a weird one because he's only been a pro for part of the year this year. We haven't seen him in a Black Ops game before. So it's interesting. I think for now I'm going to throw him in the Great category, but I could definitely see him going down to Good. The reason I throw him in Great is because he was plugged into Florida and he instantly won 2 events, and he had a very good KD all year. He looked like a great player, so I think he definitely has potential to continue to be a great player. So we're going to throw him in Great, but he's kind of on the fringe of Great and Good to me. So I think I'd keep him there. I don't think he'd be Elite, but I guess going through the players, if I don't find enough Elite players, maybe I'd throw him up there. And then the next one is Vivid, with that horrible Photoshop that they have. This one's really interesting to me as well, because when you look at him, it's like in Search and Destroy, he seems like he's an Elite or S tier player with like a 1.3 on the year, but in Respawn, he was super inconsistent. A lot of people probably put him in Decent, but I think I'm going to throw him in the Good category for now. I could see him maybe dropping to Decent depending on how the rest of this video goes, because I'm kind of looking at players as they go. So he definitely could drop down to Decent, but I think I kind of see him as a Good player right now, mainly because of his Search and Destroy play. And then same thing with Hollow. I think he's kind of a Good or Decent player. I think I'm going to throw him in Decent for now. I could see him jumping up to Good if we're kind of running out of people that we want to put in Good. He might be like the first guy to jump up, but he's going to be Decent for now. Fero, he's kind of on that Elite and S tier border. I think I'm going to throw him in S. He's going to be our first S tier player. It might be controversial to you, but I mean, if it was like 5 or 6 like it normally was during the year, he wouldn't be in S, but since there's 79 players down here, and then there's 10 spots in S based on his play last year, and he was really, really good in World War II. We didn't see him obviously too much in Black Ops 4 because he didn't get too much of a chance. He was dropped off 100 Thieves pretty quickly after the Pro League qualifier for Prista. So then I think I'm going to put him in S tier because First of all, he's really young. He's one of the best search and destroy players in the world. He's an extremely good sniper. He can be a sub or an AR. He's a good flex. I think he's an S tier player because of how good he is at every role. I mean, he's going to be the best search player on whatever team he's on. He's an elite SMG player, and he's an elite AR, and he's all around great. He's good at every game mode, so I'm going to put him in S. And then Arcitys is another guy who's on the border of elite. He's easily elite or S tier. I think I'm going to throw him in elite for now. If we're getting towards the point where we're kind of on the edge of like maybe having like 9 people in S tier, he could be a guy that moves up though. Crim, kind of the same thing. I think he could be considered S tier if you're really considering intangibles. Obviously we're not considering content and stuff, but intangibles is something you have to consider, like leadership and stuff. And he's easily in the elite tier for me, especially because of that leadership, and he obviously has a lot of gun skill too. But he's easily in that tier, so I'm gonna put him in elite. I could see him going to S, like I said, also if we're not having a ton of people that I see that I want in S. The next player is a guy who didn't play at all last year. It's Tommy. I mean, if we're talking all time, he might be the greatest European player of all time, so he'd be up in that great and elite tier. But for now, I'm going to put him in decent. I think he actually, if he played this year, I think he'd be in the good category because he actually is a really, really good player. He was just a sub on the best team in the world, the team that won champs, so he obviously didn't get a chance to play, and he's more of an AR player, and the ARs in his team were Crim and Clay. So he's obviously not going to get a chance unless one of them just wanted out or something. But I actually think if Tommy could get a spot, unfortunately he probably won't since he was a sub this year in the league, got cut down by 12 spots. That's one of the unfortunate cases of why he probably won't get a spot, although maybe if London's dropping their roster, they'll take a chance on him. But it's unfortunate because I actually do think he's, like, if he were to play, I think he's like a good or a great player. But unfortunately, he's going to be thrown in the decent category because he didn't play, so we haven't seen him in a while. And just circumstances are unfortunate for him. Next player is Skies. He's going straight in the elite. I think he could potentially be an S tier player, but like I said, I kind of want to leave the S tier a little bit more open because then if we get like 13 players in here, we only have 2 up here, I can start to move them up kind of as we go along. Really good player though. Aqua, a lot of you might put him in the decent category, but if you saw him at all in Black Ops 3, dude was insane. He was also pretty good at Black Ops 4. He was pretty good in World War II. I mean, in Black Ops 3, he carried their team. I think he's actually a really good main AR. I think he was just stuck on a team that really wasn't all that great. So yeah, I'm going to put him in good for now. Decimate, he's a decent player to me. Same. Lacefield's decent, but he might have to get moved down to replaceable depending on how many, because I think there's going to be a lot of people I see and go, hey, they're decent, and throw them there. Doug, now, like I said, if this was also branding and like their ability to market for the team, Doug's in the good or great category because he's a decent enough player that if you have really good players around him, they could win. And also he brings crazy fans. If we're talking fans and branding and stuff, he's in the good or great. I mean, if we're talking branding among pros, he's in the S tier because, I mean, he's, along with Scump, he's like the second most followed player. But as a player, purely without his brand, he's a replaceable player. There are plenty of guys that can play the role that he does. Saints, another decent player to me. Hecz, I want to say he's decent for now, but if we have too much players in the decent category filling it up, he's easily going to be the one that goes to good because I think a lot of these players down here are roughly the same skill level, but he's got better intangibles. Chino, to me, another decent player, but in the right title, if Cold War is a little slower and he can get an AR in his hands like World War II, he could easily move up into the good or great category. Accuracy, that's a good or great player to me. I think we'll throw him in the good for now. Like I said, if I'm leaning more towards a guy probably being in like good or decent or good or great, I'm probably going to go towards the lower one for now and then just move him up later as we go along because there are 79 players to get through. I don't know exactly where I'm going to put everybody. But this is a guy who's on the border of S and elite. He's going to go in elite for now though because I think I'm going to put at least 3 of his teammates in S from last year. I think you know who they are, so I'm going to put him in elite just because I don't think he's quite S tier. I think he's elite in every game he plays because he's so versatile though. Now this is a guy that could be borderline S tier. We're going to throw him in elite for now, but like I said, he obviously wasn't that good at Modern Warfare, but if you look at Black Ops 4, he was probably a top 5 player, probably the best flex in the game. He was insane. So he could definitely be an S tier player going into a Black Ops game, especially since he will be happy on the Huntsmen now with the flex in his hand. So he's definitely a guy that could move up into the S tier. I'm just going to leave him in elite for now, though, because I do have at least 4 other players in mind that I kind of want to go to S tier. So he's going to stay in elite for now, but if that starts to fill up, he's moving right to S. Then I believe this is Lucky. He's going to be a replaceable player, obviously, because he didn't play at all this year. But if I wish a team, like an expansion team, would go to like Spain and they could pick up like the Heretics get like medals and Lucky and like Sucre and those guys. That'd be kind of fun if they had a roster from there. And who's that other guy they picked up late in the year? I can't remember his name. They dropped Methods and picked up like Vortex or something. It'd be kind of fun if they had that roster in like a Spanish team. I think that'd be really cool. Then Methods, my boy, my favorite player. He's a good or great player, I think. I kind of want to give, if you ever seen Salvation's Elite, he does these types of videos. Shout out to him. In his recent video, he kind of did like a video where he didn't want to give the ARs as much bump because the ARs had it so easy this year. Excuse me. The ARs did have it a lot easier this year, so like their KDs look inflated. So I don't want to just say like, wow, this AR had a 1.3, he had a 1.3, let's bump them all up to S. But Methods is a good or great player. Like I said, if this starts to fill up, he can move up. Kenny, you know how I feel about him. I think Kenny's an elite or S tier player. I'm actually going to throw him in S for now. I think Kenny is insane. He was really good at World War II, really good at Black Ops 4, like extremely good at Black Ops 4. He sucked for the first like month or two, but then once we got into like the Pro League and stuff, he was insane. He was one of the best Maddox players in the game, and he could even flex to the sub a little bit. I also think the team around him is going to help him a lot this year, and we saw he struggled this year, but the second he got on good internet, he was one of the best players in the world. Kenny's an S tier player. His teammate Slasher, he might be an S tier player too. I think I'm going to throw him in S. If you guys know anything about me, you know how much I like Slasher. I think Slasher is arguably the best main AR every year, obviously with like guys like Formal and Octane, and sometimes even Clay recently competing with him. But Slasher's an S tier player. Assault, he's another good or decent player. I actually think he's a little bit overrated as an AR. I think he plays so slow, and I think this year Crim might have been right. He wasn't really playing to win. I think he was playing to keep a roster spot on a team. I think he's a decent player. Obviously, he's a former COD Champs MVP in World War II, but that was a really weird run. I don't know how much you can weigh that in. That's still like his only chip he's ever won. But we're going to put him in the decent category. He could be a guy that moves up to good. Then we got Cammy. I think Cammy's a good player, maybe potentially a great player based on last year. He was really good at BO4 Champs, I remember, on that like units team with Rated. So he could potentially be great, and as you can see, there's only one player in great right now, so he could definitely move up. He's like one of the first candidates to move up, but he's a good player at least. Clay's a greater elite player. I think we're going to give Clay, I mean, you know, I wanted to say Clay was a great player the second I saw his face, but then I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, this dude's back-to-back world champ. He played well at BO4 Champs, had like a 1 KD, and then he was arguably the best player on the team at Modern Warfare Champs, so we got to start giving this guy some credit. He's an elite player. And he's another guy like Crim that even if you think he's more of a great player for his skill level right now, since he's maybe declining since he's a lot older, his intangibles that he brings are off the charts. Then we got TJ. He's a good or great player. I think I'm actually going to put him in great. If it was based on Modern Warfare, he'd probably be like a good or a decent player. He wasn't very good. But if you look at him in Black Ops 4, at times he was like one of the like probably best SMGs, maybe like top 5, top 6 SMGs in the game at certain points, maybe early in the year and stuff. So he'd probably be like an elite player if you're looking at him from that early stage. But I think he's going to bounce back in this game. Like I said, I think he's going to be teaming with like Kenny Slasher and maybe like a Gunless or a Priesta or a Temp. So their team's going to be stacked. I think he's going to have a lot of good players on him. That's going to make him better. I think he's going to be a great player. He's also going to be more motivated. Medals, I feel like he's actually a decent player, but since he was a sub, it's really easy to put him in replaceable, and we have to find 9 guys to put down there, so we're going to throw him down there for now. Jerd, I actually think Jerd is a good player heading into Black Ops Cold War. He was good at Black Ops 3. He was okay at Black Ops 4 for a while there. I think he was like the best shot puncher in the game, but we're going to throw him in good. He could move down to decent. We don't want to make this video too long. We've got a lot of players left, so we're just going to kind of start cutting down the explanation a little bit. I mean, if you know me, I'm not a fan of Rated. I think he's a pretty replaceable player, but we're going to throw him in decent for now to give him some respect. Shawnee, he's also a decent player. Man, I want to put him in decent, but I think based on his champs performance, his stock's a little high, so I'll put him in good. I think he's a good to decent player. This is an easy S tier. I think he might be the best player in the league. He's insane. You know anything about me, you know I love a Beezy. I think a Beezy gets no shine because he's with Simp, and Simp is the flashy guy, but a Beezy's always sliding in first and getting a 2-piece. Dude is the best entry sub I think I've ever seen. Scraps, he's a good or great player. Since we only have a couple in the great, I think I might throw him in the great category for now. He could move down though. Wuzkin, if you throw Scraps in the great, I think you got to throw Wuzkin in the great, although they both could drop potentially depending on what we've got. Alex, good player. Asim, some of you might put him in decent or replaceable because he had a bad end of the year, but he plays a really tough role. He plays a Beezy role of playing insanely fast and just like sliding in front of you. He just isn't as good as a Beezy, unfortunately, so his KD suffers. But Asim is a really good player. If you don't think Asim's a good player, I think you got to learn a little bit more about COD, because the dude he might drop a 0.9 at every event or like a 0.85, but the impact he's having on the map is he's helping. The reason that he has his 0.85, but his teammate has a 1.1 and not a 1 is because of him. He's sliding in, he's baiting for his teammates always, and also picking up a kill most times. Dylan, this might be controversial, but I'm going to put Dylan in great for now also. If you saw Dylan in Black Ops 4, I mean, if you're a new fan of Modern Warfare, you obviously are like, what, Dylan? He's like a decent player at best because he wasn't very good at this game. But in Black Ops 4, dude was arguably the best sub player in the game. So I'm going to put him in great, giving him the benefit of the doubt that we're going back to a Treyarch game. This is an easy S tier. I couldn't grab him there. This is an easy S tier. I put him in the elite now. What the heck am I doing? Easy S tier for Sim. Not much explanation needed there. Exceed also, I think, an easy replace. He actually played pretty good at Champs, so shout out to him. But he's not going to be on a starting roster, so I think you got to consider him replaceable. Godorex is another interesting one. At times last year, you could argue he was an S tier player, and then he was maybe elite, and then he's kind of dropped off the great, and then he was only like good or decent towards the end of the year. I think I'm going to put him in good. How many players do we have here in good? 4, 8, 10. So we got 7 more spots. Yeah, I'm going to put him in good. Mac, I think Mac is kind of in the great category. Once again, I'm being a little bit lenient and not lenient, I'm being a little bit strict actually, and putting people kind of like almost maybe one lower than I think they are in some cases. So like some of these guys could move up. Draza, I think he's a good player. He showed he was a good player at the end of last year. Silly, another guy who I think is a good player. I think you could put him in decent, but I think Silly's another guy that brings a lot of intangibles. He's one of the oldest players in the league, one of the most experienced, has been around since like COD 4. So I think his intangibles really help him a lot. So to me, he's in the good category. Gunless, another guy that based on, past performances could be in the S tier, but we'll keep him in elite for now. I think if you know anything about Gunless, best flex in the world at times. Attached, that's an elite or great tier player. I think we're going to put him in elite because we've got, 3, 6, 8 in elite. We got 5 more spots. We'll keep him in elite for now. Zero, I like Zero a lot. I think he's a great player personally, but I think we'll throw him in good for now just in case we start to fill up the great. Envoy, I think he almost has to be an S tier player. I think he's on the border of S and elite, but since there's 10 spots in S, he has to be in there. And when you're looking at him, the dude was one of the best sub players in BO4, and then you could argue he was like a top 5 sub. He was an MVP candidate this year, so obviously he was a top 5 sub. So I think his stock is at really high, and I think he's going to be really good in another Treyarch game, so we've got to throw him in the S tier. Huke, man, a guy that I want to throw in S tier. He's easily elite though. What does that give us? 3, 6, 9 in the elite tier, so we got 4 more. I like I said, if S tier doesn't fill up, Huke might be one of my early call-ups to the S tier. And we've got Tommy. He's a great or elite player. Zuma, I think I'm going to throw him in great for now. Breji, I believe this is. He's going to be replaceable since he didn't play this year, but if you did see him in BO4, if we start to fill up the replaceable and we have room to jump up to decent, he's instantly going to jump up to decent. If it was based on BO4 only and I had seen him play this year, just know he still has it. This dude could be in like great category. At the end of BO4, at Champs, he was like one of the best players. Then we've got Scump. Like I said, if this was based on content also, he's an S tier player, instantly number 1 in S tier, but I think he's actually going to be put in the elite category. Based on his Modern Warfare Champs, he was one of the best subs there, one of the best players there. His BO4 Champs, he's one of the best players there. And then every Treyarch game, Black Ops 2, he was insane. Black Ops 1, he was even insane. Black Ops 3, he was arguably the best sub. And then Black Ops 4, he was the best sub in the beginning and the end, maybe. Obviously, besides like Simp and Abizi. But he was arguably the best sub in BO2 and 3, and then one of the best ones in BO4. So he's got to be in the elite tier. Denz is another interesting one. I think he's a good player, but I'm going to throw him in decent for now. Oh, who we got next? Illey. He's like an elite great border player. We're going to put him in the elite category. Might have to drop some people down. We're filling up the elite pretty fast. Kismet, that's a decent player. Phantoms. I want to put him in replaceable since we didn't see him at all, but I actually think he's a good player. We'll throw him in decent for now. He might be our first move down if we have to. And like I said, I might not put 20 people in a category, so don't worry if you see that and you're like, oh my god, you're putting too many people in that category. I might put 20 in like the good category or something, and I'll just move them around at the end. Temp, that's a great player. Celium, you know where he's going. Come on. Celium's going to the elite tier, or not elite tier, excuse me. I said come on, and then I screwed it up myself. He's going to the S tier. One of the best players in the world. Mox, he's a decent player. The unfortunate part for him is there's still only 12 main AR spots, and that's like the only role he can play is the main AR. So it's unfortunate for him. He actually is a good main AR, but he might get kind of left out. Major Maniac, I'll put him in the great. Shocks, sorry, but he's got to go there. A lot of the Paris players have to go there. I think Luca can go in the decent, though. Zed can go in the decent. How many do we have in decent? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Oh, he still have 2 more spots. This is pretty good. Havoc, I think he'll go in the good. Although he does seem to be on a choking team at champs every year, I think we have to throw him in the good because he actually did have a really good year, and he was also really good at BO4. Obviously didn't really play much in World War II, but he was also really good at BO3. So he's been really good at the last 2 Treyarch games, so I think we got to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's going to be a pretty good player this year. Then in good, we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 14, so we've got a couple more spots, and that's right where Apathy is going to go. He might be an early jump-up candidate to the great tier if we're needing some people, because, in my opinion, I almost think Apathy was better than John in BO3 when John won Champs MVP. And Apathy, at the end of the year at Champs in BO4, I mean, he came out of nowhere for EG and was, like, the best player in their team. So, yeah. Formal, I think you got to put him in the elite tier as well. How much does that give us an elite? 3, 6, 9, 12. So we got one more elite spot. Formal, not much needs to be said, especially in Treyarch game. He was the best main AR for a while there in BO3, and he was really good in BO4 when he finally got switched to the Maddox. This one might be controversial to you, but Enable's easily a good or great player to me. I don't know if you've ever been watching Enable's YouTube that he started recently when he's been breaking down games. You can see his intelligence shine through when he's breaking down games. He's been playing FPS esports for like literally half his life, like 14 years or something like that, if you include his Halo years. Dude knows so much about Call of Duty. You can see him breaking down the game, and I love watching it. If you do like breaking down the game, watch his videos on like his like rewatching champs. They're insane to watch. They're awesome to watch. I really think that he knows what he's talking about. I think he is a really good teammate and brings high vibes to the team. I just think he's actually a really talented player. He just got unlucky this year with the team he was on. Octane, that's going to be an S tier player for me, I think, because we've got how many in the S tier now? 3, 6, 8. So we got 8. We have spot for 2 more. Yeah, Octane's going to be there. Pander, hate to say it, but replaceable. Shottzyy, replaceable. Just kidding. He's an S tier player as well. So that's going to, yeah, I think when I'm looking, unless I miss somebody down here, I don't think we're going to have anybody else that's in the S tier from down here. So we're going to have to move somebody up, but we'll get to that later. Proto, replaceable. You probably could have figured that out. Slacked, I'm actually going to put him in the good category. A lot of you are probably like, oh my god, Slack's trash from last year. But Slacked, I mean, once again, everybody that calls Slack trash, sometimes he doesn't look like he's the best on the map because he's constantly dropping like 0.9s and stuff. But it's kind of like a guy like Classic. There's a reason that he's got a chip in like almost every game. He's got one of the highest average placings. Like Classic, I don't think has one of the highest average placings, but he gets a chip in like every single game. He's got a chip in 4 of the last 5 years. Same with Slack. He didn't get a chip this year, obviously, but he gets a chip like almost every year or is in a final every year. So you don't just stumble to a final or a chip every year by accident. Like, you've got to be a pretty good player. Then Bance, decent. And like I said, these might be overflowed, but don't worry about it. Brack, I think we're going to throw him in the decent tier as well. If you saw him in Black Ops 4, he was actually one of the better players in the game. So I'd love to throw him in like the good or great tier, but since we didn't see him at all this year, it's hard to do that. Prestinni, that's another good player. He could also move up because I can see that we're overloaded here and need some more great players. Frosty, another good player. We'll address this. We'll move people up. Blast is another decent player, I think. I think Classic is actually another good player. Kleenex to me is actually a great player. I'm putting him in the great category. He was insane at BO4 once we saw him in champs, and he was so good when they put him in this year. I actually think he's a great player. Looney's another good player. Yeah, we've got way too many here. And then Mayhem, I think we got to throw in replaceable because we haven't seen him in a while, even though he was good at BO4 champs. That puts us at 3, 6, 9 in replaceable. Perfect. And then we've got how many in S tier? We'll start moving up from the top. We've got 3, 6, 9 in S tier. We need one more, so it's got to be somebody from the elite tier. Oh man, this is tough because I think you could easily throw a guy like Skies in there or a guy like Huke in there based on their last year performance or Huke's performance for how many years. I could see throwing like a guy like Crim in there or Crim or Clay because of their veteranness. Clay just went back to back, Formal even going into a Black Ops game. Illey even because he's a good young talent. I want to throw Arcitys in there because he's going to be back on the main AR on Atlanta Faze maybe, but I'm going to throw Dashy in there actually, just as a more controversial pick. I think the standard pick would be Arcitys there, but just to be a little bit more controversial, I wanted to go Dashy or Gunless. Last time we saw Dashy in a BO4, in a Black Ops game, a Treyarch game, he was arguably the best player in the world. He won an MVP at the tournament that he won, so I think he's got to be in there. So that gives us, 3, 6, 9, 10. Yeah, S is done. We've got 3, 6, 9, 11, so we need 2 more great players. This is actually tough looking down here, or 2 more elite players we need. This is tough looking down here. I want to throw a guy like Temp up there, actually, because he was actually good this year, and then he was really, really, really good at BO4, one of the best players in the game at times. So we kind of got to give him the benefit of the doubt there. I mean, he's, for a while there, he said he might not be on a team. I think he is on a team now, thank God, especially if he actually is the guy that goes to OGLA with Slasher, Kenny, and Teej. He's going to have a really good year. Then I, for some reason, want to throw Dylan in the elite, but since he was so bad this year, I think we can't throw him in the elite. I want to throw Mac up there too, but since we've only seen him for half a year, it's hard to do that. Major Maniac was really good at BO4, so I could see doing that. Kleenex, I want to see a little bit more out of him. I think I'm going to throw Zuma in the elite category. Zuma's an extremely good player. I think you can't really have any argument against him in the elite category. So that gives us 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. Elite's done, and we've got a lot. We've got to move up to the grade category. That's 3, 6, 8 are in here. We need 5 more. Oh, who's a great player from this category? I think I'm going to throw Apathy up there. I'm going to throw Prestinni up there. That might be controversial to some Huntsmen fans that are here because they think he's trash after last year, apparently. I think I'm actually going to throw Accuracy up there and Cammy. So what does that give us? 3, 6, 9, 12. We need 1 more. The reason I throw these guys up here, Apathy, insane at Treyarch games normally. Accuracy, just a really good main AR, and he knows the game so well. Prestinni, I almost said Priesta. Prestinni, once again, plays that role like a Seam or like a BZ, and he's kind of in between those two in terms of skill level. He's a little bit better than a Seam, but obviously not as good as a BZ. But he can fly in, slide in front of you, and be a really good entry sub. But at the same time, he can also be like a flex main AR, or not main AR, a flex, and play the AR a little bit like we saw this year when they had the 3rd AR out. So he's a pretty versatile player. I think he actually prefers to be more of a flex, so if he could get that role somehow, he'd be really good. And maybe with the Seattle roster falling through, he could. Then we're looking for 1 more player from the good to move up. I'd like to move like Zero up or like Silly, but Zero, we haven't had like a superstar game out of him in a while. I like Asim a lot, and like Classic, Looney, Slack, Enable, those guys. I really want to move Enable up to Great, but I think that'd be a little too controversial since he didn't play last year. So I think it's going to be Methods. We're going to move up Methods. So that does give us 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. Yep. In Methods, I mean, he was a good player in BO4, just didn't have a good team. And the last time we saw him in 4v4, he was one of the best main ARs in the world in World War II. In the good category, we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, I believe. Was that right? 6, 9, 12, 15, 16. Yeah, so we only need 1 more player in the good category that's got to move up. I said Hollow was going to be one of my first candidates to move up. Looking at these LAG guys, I don't really think I can move any of them up. Chino, can't really move them up. Kismet rated Tommy, can't move them up. Mox, Phantoms, Luca, Zed. It's hard to move any of these guys up. You can maybe move Blast up. Or Assault, or like Decimate. I really have a lot of faith in Decimate. I think I'm going to move Blast up based on he was actually a good player at BO4. And then since a lot of these guys on here are all kind of the same level of skill, Blast is one of those guys that could be really good at search, so that's kind of an intangible for him. So that gives 6, 9, 12, 15, 17 there, so there should be 17 here. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17, yeah. So there's our list. I think the replaceable players are pretty hard to argue against. I mean, we've got 2 guys that didn't play a lot this year, although you could say Metals could move up in front of a couple people up here in the decent category. Maybe I could see like you could throw Metals ahead of like a Luca or a Zed or a Phantoms and stuff. But just based on Phantoms and Brack being really good at BO4, I threw them in the decent category over guys like Metals or like Panda or Proto and those guys. But yeah. So in our S tier, you can see that too. I'll put it up there. You don't really want to see the replaceable category here as I talk about the end of the video. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. This is a tier maker sitting actually on the website. So maybe if you guys want to create your own list on what you think, obviously you're going to have some that are different than me. We're probably not going to have the exact same list. I would assume that we'll have people within one category near each other, unless you're like crazy and put like Decimate in the S tier or something, or Aches in the S tier. But this is on the tier maker website. Maybe I'll put a link for it in the description or something if you guys would want to go make your own and like tweet it at me or something. So if you want to do that, I'll try to do that. Throw the link for this tier maker in the description. and then you guys can tweet your tier maker at me, tweet a picture of it or something. But I think that's going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more CDL content. It's going to be coming on the way. We might finally be able to do a podcast again in like a week, because there might be some more things to talk about with rosters and stuff, because free agency is officially open. We're for the first time ever going to PC with a controller. Challengers can play crossplay. You can play on Xbox now in Challengers. But yeah, that is going to do it for this one. Like I said, be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. Comment down below what you thought of this list. Obviously, we love the comments here on this channel. Comment down below what you thought of my list. Is there somebody that needs to be moved around? I think it's pretty good. And like I said, tweet a list that you make at me. I'd love to see lists that you guys have. So yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to do all the things I said. Check out the description. Follow the Twitter in there. I'm looking forward to this next week of a lot of CDL news, so maybe look forward to a big podcast on that. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.